Welcome to Connie's Chalk Talk. This is Missy Martinez, and she is a licensed professional counselor. And before that, Missy worked at a special high school that actually helped with learning kids who had learning disabilities. Today, we're going to look at family dynamics. And you know what I'm talking about. Family dynamics can be great and wonderful, or they can be quite challenging. All right, so Missy, I want you just to tell us a little bit about you and actually what you do.
Hi. Okay. Something about me. I've grown up in Fayette County all my life. I went to school in state, and then ended back up in Fayette County. Married to a great guy. Let's see, it'll be 30 years this December.
Woo!
And we have three wonderful grown boys. And let's see what else. I have a dog named Luna, and she is like my, what do you call it? She's like my comfort dog, whatever the word is.
There you go for those pet lovers out there, right?
Mhm. And let's see, I've been working. I went back to get my master's in professional counseling approximately 6 years ago. And I have been working. I've opened up my own business called Renew Counseling Services. And I also do some contract work for some other companies. And so I do a wide range of things. I counsel individuals. I do some marriage counseling, and I work with a lot of autistic clients and families. I also, on the side, do a little bit of educational consulting, and in that, I do a little bit of tutoring on the side, and I also help homeschool four students now in high school.
All right, so you have your hands quite full and you have a ton of experience working with kids, working with families, and even working with marriages, as you said, which makes you a great candidate for this Chalk Talk because that's what I do is I work with people in marriage because sometimes our marriage goes flat or dull or there's a lot of challenge or there's conflict and sometimes we just keep letting things go on and on and on. And that's kind of when people come to you. They've let things go on and on and on until everything's about to fall apart. That's when we usually search out help, right? All right. So the first thing I want to talk about today is how would you describe the dynamics of most families today?
Um, Unfortunately, a lot of the families today are blended families. And I think that's a lot of most probably a lot or most of the families nowadays are having to deal with um, divorce and remarriage and step parents, step children, step brothers, sisters, siblings. So we're looking at a little bit more diverse family than,
Mm-hmm.
than your traditional um, mom and dad stay married for a very long time and have the children.
You know what, Missy? I love that because my own family, there's several blended families in my own family, and I never thought I would have to deal with that. But you know what? I've realized since that's happened is that kids grow up with challenges in their lives, such as blended families, substance abuse, physical abuse. And what I have found is that usually the people that are causing the problem in the family, they usually have some kind of problem from their past. Do you agree?
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with most of the couples that come in for marriage counseling. That's one of the main things that they're dealing with. They've brought in from their past into their marriage the issues that have not been resolved or processed from the past. And so then it comes in to their new family, and it's causing havoc. It'll rear its ugly head there usually.
I use those exact words actually. Rear its ugly head. And what happens whenever that ugly head is reared? Usually conflict meets conflict. Conflict causes more conflict, right? So, when it comes to blended families, since we started out talking about that, let's think about that, because let's look at all the extra problems that happen in a blended family. Because, in a regular family, the behavior of the kids, how the parents interact, and all that kind of thing come into play. But when you blend two families, now you've got um, families with another family, and you have moms or dads with their own kids, and then with their stepkids. And I like to use the analogy, I had a little dog named Rascal one time, and he was the cutest little thing. And I compare this because my kids are so grown, they're grown with kids at this point. And I think about my little puppy. And my little puppy was so cute and so sweet, and he could do some things wrong, but I still adored him. But because I got him when he was a puppy. But if somebody else's little puppy or a dog came into my house, went and wet on things, or, tore things up, or didn't listen to me, or was defiant, then I don't think of that puppy quite the same way, because I didn't love that puppy to start with. And then what happens is, when there's frustration and conflict, it's hard to love. If people don't act well, it's hard to love. Can you give us maybe some tips on how to love the unlovable?
Yes. Yes. And when you were talking, the first thing that came to my mind was choosing to love.
Mm,
So even let's say, as soon as that stepchild or that new puppy comes walking in your door, if you have to make a decision, and your decision is, I choose to love this child, or this puppy or whatever. So when you do that, then things don't seem to bother you as much. The little things that happen, and especially if they're going to be part of your family. You have, I've actually raised a stepson, so I'm also part of the blended family,
there you go.
and so I see, so I have the experience where, I can empathize with the stepchildren coming into to a family with a step parent, and then I also can have empathy for a step parent that's having to raise a stepchild or be involved with a stepchild. So that's that's, I think, if it in someone's mind, it's a little bit harder for the children to do that, but as an adult, if I choose to love this person as this child as my own, and not have the you say the separation or the boundary of this is a stepchild, I think things go a lot smoother, a lot easier.
I like the saying where you say, focus on what you want, focus on the behavior that you want, and you'll get more of it. Or if you focus on the bad behaviors, which is what we end up doing because we can't help ourselves. But I think that you have a key ingredient there, and it's an ingredient that can't be left out, and it's the word love. You know, really, what does every single person want? They want to be loved and they want to be accepted. And without being loved or accepted, then they become defiant and give you trouble. And I like the idea of complimenting things that kids do good, complimenting things that your spouse does good. Because if you're complimenting, then you're not like criticizing, right?
Right, right. When we totally keep focusing on all the negative and all the things everyone doesn't, in our minds, don't do right or correct, you know, it's you're not going to get anywhere. Why don't we, and I'm talking to myself too, why don't we concentrate more on the positives and the
Hmm.
strengths of our children or our spouses and our families. I think too, and I don't know if this may be maybe something you want to talk about, or if I'm, but one thing I was thinking about is working as a team, the family as a team. And when you incorporate in, and the children, it's not like, parents against children and children against parents. I mean, and this is, whether it's blended or not, if you create a sense of teamwork, like maybe in the olden days where the children are helping the parents with the chores and the, food and bringing in so we can eat, it kind of, let's see, creates a sense of responsibility for the children as well, for the family. And everybody has to pull their own weight. And it's not where you do, like as a parent, you do, where a child wants the parent to do this for me, do this for me, do this for me. And then it's not, there's no, they don't have any input, they don't have anything invested. So teamwork is a good motto too, as well.
Okay, so that's something I use an acronym to that TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. And that's one of my favorite little, acronyms. And together, everybody achieves more. And guess what? When we ask everyone in the family to do a little something, what is it they do well? Everybody does a little something, and then much gets done, because what they say, many hands lighten the load or something. I'm not real good on my sayings, but many hands make work easy, right? So I love that. It just happens that one of my kids remarried, and then they had a kid, and they blended their family, and guess how many kids they have? Nine children. Nine children from like 8 months old to 14, and eight of them are girls, and one is a boy. And suddenly I really became interested in the whole idea about blended families. So it's kind of funny that you mentioned that today, because it is so much harder, I think, for blended families. Although they seem to have really accepted each other and they work together, there's still always that little undercurrent of, am I loved? Am I appreciated? You know, uh, all that kind of thing. So, do you have anything you would like to add about blended families that can help them?
That's
Sorry.
I'm sorry, my mind is blank, but I will say that, um, you know, if the parents have criticisms of other parents, of the children, keep it to yourself. Don't present that to the child. Because actually my mother gave me this, and she was like, you know, if you criticize the other parent, you're actually criticizing that
Mm,
child. You're saying something negative, then because that child is born from that parent. Well, whether they're born or not from that parent, that's their parent. They come from that parent. It's like you're criticizing them as well. And
okay. So I hear what you're saying, and that goes back to your word team that you just said a minute ago. Because the two parents that are married, they need to support one another and have each other's back, right? And then I think what you're also saying is, that parent that's not in the household, there's another parent out there. And oh my gosh, let's take the high road, right? Let's take the high road, and let's only talk well about that person, unless there's some things, maybe you need to caution the kid about, when they're at their house or something like that. But let's take the high road, and let's be positive, and talk nicely about each other. I think that sets a precedence for them too. Plus, guess what? Each parent feels supported. And I don't know, let's talk about what makes a great marriage. Can we do that?
sure.
Okay, so I know for me, you know, um, I think the beginnings of a great marriage is two people, teamwork, just like you just said, that support each other. So let's talk about some ways that couples can support each other and let each other they know they have their back, because these things do affect, the whole family dynamics, how they support each other, and just that. Can you think of some things on that?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is make sure that one thing that comes to mind is like having a certain set of time for that you just give each other, whether it's 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, where you give a time where you even sit down and you focus on one another, you look at one another, you talk to one another, you're sharing some sort of intimacy with another, because with the busy schedules, especially
Mhm.
with children, and you're running around, it's so hard. I mean, then you're exhausted and drop into in bed, and it's like then you start all over again. um making efforts to do that, because sometimes it's like ourselves, we're so busy we don't take care of ourselves. And I think in the family, we get so busy taking care of the family, we don't concentrate on each other, as far as the spouses go. So I think I just as also in addition to that, giving specific a little bit of individual one-on-one time to each child too doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
because and I mean, it's great for family time, but sometimes we also need the individual time. So I think that's one thing that I know that what helped my marriage a lot was that we went to some really great several throughout our time period of like marriage retreats, or involved or getting involved in some kind of you know uh marriage is self-help, or whatever you want to call it. I'm lost at words right now, but where in that we concentrate on each other.
And that's really being proactive, because we live in a reactive world, and that's being proactive, right?
Right, like, yeah, prevent problems. Because, and I think too, and what I've learned also is that be very protective of your marriage, be very protective of your relationships, because we're so distracted. There's so many distractions around us that you blink, you can blink, and then where is our relationship, where is that strong intimacy that we used to have, where is any of that. And even with our kids, when if they get too involved in other things, and you blink an eye, and then they're grown, or they're teenagers, and then you never see them. And so
Yeah.
I say, so be protective, don't let, because little things can get in, and that's what starts, that will sprout. You don't even know it's in there, and then it starts sprouting and causing havoc.
And sometimes we have to, number one, start with self care, because Missy, because you try to do so many things because you want to help people so much. So sometimes we have to start with self care and make sure that our tank is refueled so that we can, take care of all these things and refuel our family also. But I was, let's see if my mind's going to go blank. Don't go blank. um, it did. All right. So uh, there was a couple of things that ran through my mind. That's the thing when you're talking like this. Um, for me, one thing is that some years ago, maybe like 20 years ago, my kids had just they were teenagers, couple are out of the house, one was left in the house, and they were in junior, senior high school. And we had a family member, an extended family member, who some family members who went AWOL. And then in the blink of an eye, we took their kids.
Mm.
Like one day you're like told family members gone AWOL, problems, alert, alert. And you're like, what? Life had just gotten easier because my kids were all getting grown and all those years of taking care of kids. And the next thing I knew, there was about a separated, but a 2.5 year period where we took on those kids. And we're talking about, loving them. It's like, for me, it was like, okay, like I'm going to take care of these kids, and, you know, just like my own. But I was just telling my daughter the other day, this is my thought that just came back, was that, so often young mothers are like, I'm so exhausted. Well, I always hear this saying, this is why you have your children when you're young, because, you got your energy. Well, guess what I have found? And I've thought this over and over is guess what? I have a lot of energy now. I have grandkids. I have 14 grandkids. I have a lot of energy now. Why is that? Because when you're a mother and you're burning the candle at both ends and you don't take care of yourself, it's like suddenly you just burn out. I had told my daughter, actually, she said, this is some weeks back, that she's like, I went on strike. I am so tired of doing this and this and this and this. And my family, blah, blah, blah. We've all said it. We've all done it. And she said, I thought I would just go on strike. And I'm like, I did that when y'all were little, like for a week. I'm like, I'm not washing clothes. I'm not cooking dinner. I'm not picking up people's stuff. I'm not. I was just, so mad and so empty, low on energy, right? And that's when we react. It's when we're low on energy. So I probably really got us off the train there. But these are realities in life that we really have to energize ourselves, take time with our spouse, just like what you were saying, have each other's back, and that kind of thing, especially in a blended family. So let's go back to that blended family. So, what are some challenges from the kids' point of view that they have?
Well, it can, I guess it could vary. One thought comes to my mind is you if a child's coming in and they show love or happiness to, let's say, a step parent, then they may feel like they are doing something against the other parent.
Hmm.
And then when I'm talking about the step, the parent that's not in the household, you've got big thing, you got different sets of rules in two different houses, sometimes more than two houses. And then, so you've got different rules coming in, and, especially if there's a big difference between the sets of rules.
Mm-hmm.
So why can I do this or not do this at this house, and I can or cannot do it at this house? And then so there's a lot of tension created, especially if the child, you know, really wants to do it. And then so you've got conflict there. Um, so and then it may cause, conflict between the parent and the child. Then you've got the child that sometimes pits, and this is in any family, pits one parent against the other, or pits one sets of parents against the other sets. So you got that also coming going, happening. Um, and I think you hit it on the head is, they want to feel loved, they want to feel accepted. You don't want them to feel like the third wheel coming in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, it's our responsibility to make sure that they don't, that they feel comfortable, and they don't feel, like it's a temporary setting, especially if they're coming in for a short period of time. As much as possible, make them feel like they have a place to put their things and to stay, and if it's possible, but I think, like, preventative, like, do everything you can that's in your power. I mean, there's some things that we can't control, but there's plenty of things that we can. And I think the more we do that, I think the more comfortable everyone is, and I think you're looking at less conflict and stress.
You make me think of a challenge that I had seen, and I don't know, which way is right. Sometimes when you have two households and the kids are going between the two households, uh, is it better to let them take some of their things with them to back and forth to the households? Or I have seen where they're not allowed to take anything from their house. I mean, clothes, shoes, jackets, like whatever's on your back is all you take. You can't take your toys over there. So what you have here stays here, and what you got there stays there. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very hard question. I mean, and I would say, you know, I do think there's probably, you'd have to look at the individual circumstances, but I think generally my gut says, um, the less, let's see, the less tension that's created, the better. And if it's possible, and I understand that you send clothes over, and sometimes you might get clothes come back that's too little. Then you've lost that set of clothes.
Mhm.
Well, the thing about it is we think about that. And if it's not creating a financial burden,
Mhm.
then let it go. Let it go. Don't create because what happens is we get up if we as parents get upset, then who really feels the fallout on that?
Mhm.
And who feels the fallout on, and I understand, you take your toys over there, then you may not bring it back. Well, it's hard to say, and it depends on what it is, and what's the meaning of it to the child. And I would say definitely if it's something you don't want to get lost or irreplaceable, then then that might be something you don't. But for the most part, I would say let it go. Let it go, replace it, if it's, you know, um, I mean, look, I guess what I'm saying is clothes can be replaced, toys can be replaced, but feelings, once
Mhm.
they're kind of damaged, it's a lot harder to heal. So I guess my gut is try to let things go and not make a big deal about it as much as possible. If that's possible.
Yeah, because when you have a frustrated kid, they're lashing out. And I teach on behavior styles. And so each kid, as you probably already know, each kid is going to show their feelings different. They're going to show their frustration differently.
Mhm.
And some get angry, some close down, and they just totally close down. Some ignore it, good for them, right? Some can just get past it. They just focus on what is good, fun, fine, and lovely, and they just keep going. But many, do get angry or they close down. And what are some of the dangers of a kid who closes down or just is so angry they can't stand it?
I mean, you're looking at, well, eventually, even if they close down, eventually it's probably going to come up. And usually those are the ones that have the biggest outbursts, and, it could be very detrimental to their reputation, to other people around them. A lot of damage can be done that way. And either way, even if the anger does come out, you're looking at possible problems at school, possible problems, in their community and things that they're involved with. You can see destruction to property or to their things, a wide range of things going on. Um, so, you know, I would say as soon as possible. I mean, I would say some children may need a little bit extra counseling where they can be able to vent and process their anger in a more appropriate ways. I tell a lot of families to get a punching bag for their kids. A lot of kids are not getting as much exercise, and so a lot of times I think a lot of our pent up frustrations and anger, we were able to work that out through exercise and going outside.
Wow.
Used to, we could go out and play with other kids in the neighborhood, not and I'm not sure, I don't want to say that it's dangerous right now, but it's not as, you know, just things are different than they used to be.
Not as safe as they used to be, that's for sure.
Exactly. But we're more, we're more technological driven. I don't know if I said that right, driven society now. So a lot of things are on computer and TV and games, and a lot of things are being pushed in that direction, or went in that direction. And so kids are not I don't think kids are getting as much creative exercise outside, or
Even even me, I sit at the computer a lot, and I'm an old ballet teacher, jazzercise, Zumba, gym rat, and the next thing I know, I'm sitting at the computer. But I will say this, that's one of the things in behavior styles is that kid or that person, any person who's angry, exercise helps because that personality style, they need a challenge and they are going to challenge you with their frustration. But if they can go out and exercise and get some of that negative energy off, however, like your punching bag, right?
Mhm.
Then it's going to help. And I think that's even good for adults who have anger that it might not be from, their family or whatever, but it might be stress or whatever's going on. And if they're that style who projects their feelings through anger, then if they can, get a good sweat, right? you know, it helps with that. So how about the kid who withdraws? How can you help them?
With a kid with thralls, I would try to, they need to express their anger too. And they, I think, or their feelings. And a lot of times, sometimes children don't even know what they're feeling. They don't even
Mhm.
know why they're upset. I think, a lot of the things that we promote in counseling is, teaching the different feelings and the different, how, like what you're saying, like instead of I'm frustrated because I can't do this math problem, and then but it's not, it goes straight to anger. So you
Mhm.
got to, teach them, what are you actually feeling? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you angry at that math? Like, and some people get sad and cry when they get frustrated. So you kind of explain to them the different things and how to cope with that. Um, a lot of um, a lot of people who I've seen, where a lot of people who keep it inside, like, we talk about journaling, writing it
Mm.
down, getting that, so you're still getting that frustration out and you're processing it. Um, um, a lot of, through the arts, the singing, the
Expressing yourself.
that's expressing yourself through acting and singing and different things like that, the dancing. But somehow and then that's the individual thing. Some people are wanting to do it this way, and some people don't, you wouldn't want to journal if, if they had to, so it's like finding that sweet spot. I will tell you one thing that's been working really good is teaching, I think, and I'm teaching, trying to go back and teach a lot of the younger kids, is like a gratitude journal or gratitude paper or whatever you
Hmm.
call it, where every day you say, what are you grateful for, and make sure that they get that in their, like even make it a habit, because that kind of turns our negative attitude toward
Hmm.
more positive, where we say, well, like, my car broke down, but I had a nice stranger help me, you know, change my tire or whatever. So it's like, instead of all focusing on all the negatives in our world and that we're facing right then, where we can still be grateful for the blessings that we have. It can change and turn around a person unbelievably. It's like, even though just those little things can make a big difference.
Missy, I call those voices in our head. How many of us have those? Oh, they're awful. Voices in our head when there's stuff going on we're not happy about, and we start to focus on the negative. And I do that too. And I consider myself more of a positive person, but I do that too. And sometimes I've gotten into such a place, and I'm like, oh, it's driving me crazy. And I did just that. I started a gratitude journal. I started writing down everything that was good. And that goes along with what I like to say all the time: focus on what you want more of, and you'll get more of that. But if you focus on all the negatives, those negative things in your head, it's like it just keeps swirling and swirling. It zaps your energy. It pulls you down. It keeps you from being able to be your best. And it's like you have to change those thoughts in your head. So I love all of these things that you have shared today because I have realized that people need this kind of thing. I happen to come from a Christian family and my parents interacted well, not much conflict. No, there's always a little here and there, not much really. And then, my grandparents, the same kind of thing. And my husband's parents, same kind of thing. And so we were very fortunate. But I have realized that problems that we have in our family dynamics pour into our future life. And if we don't stop them or recognize them or get help, we can work through them. Yeah, you might end up divorced, right? Yeah, your kids may rebel because, you're working through your problems by yourself without getting any help. So honestly, I have to say, I didn't really used to believe in, counseling, or who needs that kind of stuff because I never saw people who needed that so much. But I so believe in a good counselor, a good coach, somebody who knows more than I do. They can redirect you so quickly, and take you out of that hole that you're in and redirect you into a new direction, a better direction. And hey, everything's better with friends, right? Everything's better with friends. Everything's better with people who care about you. And everybody has people or somebody who cares about them. Even when we think we're so alone and there's nobody anywhere, we get in a pity party. We
Yeah.
get in our pity party. We all do it. There are people who care. So I really do believe in coaching and counseling and people who have studied that and know what helps people move forward. And I thank you today for sharing with me. Is there anything that you would like to add as we finish?
One thing just that did pop in my mind is that it's really good to um, model for parents to model in front of their children how to resolve conflict appropriately. So I know some families are like, oh, we don't, I never saw my, like we don't want to show our kids that we're having problems or in an argument or disagreements, and they don't learn, then they don't learn how to resolve conflict. And when they get into a marriage, then they don't have the tools to do that. So one thing is a lot of modeling anything. Modeling, I know that kids nowadays don't even know anything about finances or paying bills or paying taxes or going out and doing things or going to the post office and learning how to do these things. So any kind of modeling parents can do that, I think that's very, very helpful to any child.
Because we're trying to help our kids grow up into confident, well functioning adults who give to society and bring happiness and joy into the world, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. And so, I know I found one way that I like to do it is I found great books.
Yeah.
There are self-help books on anything that you need, and I love books. And up to a few years ago, I didn't read. I won't say how old I am. 14 grandkids, 3 grown kids. That tells you something. But I didn't read and I started to read. And my mom told me not to write in the book. And I started writing in the books because I started highlighting the things that were most important to me. And of course, I like to then use some of those things whenever I'm, teaching a class or helping people out. Missy, you have been a joy. And I know you just had some challenges with your neck and you've been at the doctor this morning. And so you have done well. And I thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.